just hatched. Lapwing chicks hatch in a pretty advanced state.
This is a really good bit of animal behaviour.
Almost immediately, relying on their mottled camouflage.
ABC Radio National Science Show.
Detection by predators.
This is the rebroadcast.
At the first sign of danger or alarm from their parents, the chicks will crouch and remain absolutely motionless until the danger passes, or the parents manage to drive away the predator by aggressively dive-bombing it, or distract and divert the predator using a broken wing act. After the kids all went into school, I noticed that the plovers were in flight, alarm calling and circling the oval. The reason was that a pair of Australian hobbies, small birds of prey, were also circling, apparently aware of and searching for the crouching chicks. The adult lapwings started dive-bombing the hobbies, a marvellous sight. But soon, the first of two unusual things happened. One of the hobbies turned on one of the dive-bombing plovers and grappled it in the air. Locked together, the two birds plummeted heavily to the ground. Now, a lapwing is larger than a hobby and would be hard for a hobby to kill. The lapwing broke away almost immediately and flew off in a direct line downhill, away from me, the hobby, and the oval. It was trailing a leg, clearly damaged by the hobby attack. After a few seconds, the hobby also took off and pursued the fleeing lapwing. It caught up about 500 metres from my position, locked with it again, and the two birds plummeted to the ground a second time. A few seconds later, once again, the lapwing broke from the hobby and took flight, this time back towards the oval, where its mate was still circling and alarm calling. The hobby likewise took off again in pursuit. That's when the second, and to me truly astonishing, thing happened. The lapwing was flying in a straight line towards the oval, the hobby about 100 metres behind and gaining fast. I was standing around 30 metres off the lapwing's direct line flight path. When the lapwing had drawn almost level with my position, it suddenly changed course, flew directly towards me and landed virtually at my feet, about a metre away, clearly injured and breathing heavily. The hobby broke pursuit and rejoined its mate. After a few more minutes of circling, the two moved off and the situation calmed down. The lapwing, clearly aware of my proximity, remained at my feet for a few minutes more until the hobbies were well away, then took off and rejoined its mate on the oval, damaged and still trailing a leg, but alive and able to fly. Now, under normal circumstances, a lapwing would never approach to within a few metres of a person. These were wild birds that, despite being relatively habituated to people, they were, after all, nesting on a school oval, always remain vigilant and wary, more likely to dive-bomb than to allow a close approach. I find this event interesting and challenging, and in many decades of bird watching, I've had no similar experiences. I'm convinced that the lapwing was aware of me at the time it changed course suddenly and landed close by, with the result that it evaded the hobby. The challenging thing is that this couldn't possibly have been learned behaviour, as the magpie story, heard on the Science Show a few weeks ago, could have been. Nor could it have been instinctive behaviour. This would have been an unprecedented and unique situation for the lapwing. You can't learn unique, nor have an instinct to cover every eventuality. I can only interpret it as a purposeful, conscious, goal-seeking and predictive act on the part of the lapwing, a bird equivalent of the logical chain, if I keep my current course the hobby will catch me, if I divert and land at the feet of that human, the hobby probably won't follow. Dangerous as it is to go so close to a human, it's my only choice. I can find no other suitable explanation. Lapwings are not usually thought of as particularly bright birds. After all, they're related to seagulls, rather than to known smart birds like corvids or parrots. Can a bird brain manage the logic necessary for this to be correctly interpreted as purposeful? That's for others to say. But for me, I'm looking at lapwings with newfound interest and respect. Get him, Teely.
Okay. And checking Michael Morecambe's Field Guide to Australian Birds, the complete compact edition, the masked lapwing. A large, conspicuous, noisy and often aggressive plover, well known in those parts of Australia where it occurs. Habitat varied but typically open, short grassed sites, both natural and modified, often beside water of swamps, lagoons and salt marshes. Noisy early in nesting season, strongly defends nest site. Dives at intruders, at times striking with wing spurs, in pairs or small family groups during breeding season, at other times in large flocks. You see the spur, that may number several hundred. When feeding, stalks slowly and deliberately, body horizontal, dipping and stabbing at prey. When alert, stands upright, voice is loud and penetrating. As alarm and in threat, a noisy correct, crack. If the young are approached, the noise lifts in pitch and tempo. Common breeding resident of North and East Australia. Whereas the Australian hobby, Falco longipennis, 30 to 35 centimetres, compared to the lapwing's 35 to 39 centimetres. So yeah, the lapwing's bigger than the hobby, but not much. Flight swift, direct, with rapid shallow wing beats, occasional brief glides on flat or slightly lowered wings in pursuit of birds. The wing action becomes vigorous, deeper, the wing silhouette curves back, becomes scythe-shaped. Almost swift-like. Soaring wings are held fully outstretched so the trailing edge is almost straight. Uses woodland and open forest surrounds of lakes and swamps, watercourse, trees of interior, scrub, heath, farmland, gardens. Call is a sharp, harsh, metallic kick, accelerating to kirky, or kiki, with great or greater anguish. Calls are similar to those of the kestrel, but more harsh and metallic. Also similar to calls of the peregrine falcon, but not as deep, harsh or powerful. Calls in territorial defence, defending of the nest, or by male approaching the nest with food. Uncommon, scarce in Tasmania, but widely distributed. So, that's the Australian hobby, which is pretty much everywhere. And even though plovers have a reputation of absolutely hating humans and attacking them, this experienced ornithologist, with tertiary qualifications enabling him to get onto the ABC Radio National's science show, has an observation of a wild plover damaged in a dogfight, deliberately landing at his feet and using him as a scary thing to cause the hobby to go away. Yep, I think even birds with small brains are capable of logical, abstract thought. Warbles on a lot to YouTube. Ciao.